Good evening, my friends. We're going to get going in just a moment here. We still have folks pouring in, and it's lovely to see that there's so many of y'all, which honestly, in a way, that's not lovely because it speaks to the need. I'd rather there not be a need. When my book, Don't Tell Me to Relax, came out, and people said, "Oh, this book is so relevant right now," I was like, yeah, that's my worst nightmare, you know what I mean? Like, I'd rather this book just be totally irrelevant. Please. I'd like for us to not need this stuff. You know, I would like to have a job as a bartender or something, not have to be a trauma therapist anymore because our world is on a healing tip. But we'll get going in a moment here. Tonight's class is offered by donation, and if you are new to hanging out with me, then you know that no cash, no problem is how I roll. Nobody's ever turned away for lack of funds. This is the work that I do in the world, though. So I'll drop a Venmo link and my PayPal address, and you can take care of that at any point if you feel so inclined. Suggested donation for a class like this might be like 20 to 40 bucks, something like that. But again, we're not here because I'm looking to make money tonight. This is just the work that I do in the world, and I think we are set. The waiting room seems to have calmed down, and so we can begin in earnest now. Let's just take a moment, though. So, just going to take a moment also to take all of these names and faces in. And you might want to do the same thing. I think in this Zoom-centric kind of workshop culture we have, it's very easy to objectify the beings that are present with us. And these are all truly complex, interdimensional, right, multi-level beings just like you that are gathered here. And probably some of the wisest, most golden-hearted people you could cross paths with, too, on this planet. Isn't that a fortunate thing? Right? And so in honor of that, let's actually start by, if you want to hop into the chat. At the bottom of your Zoom screen, there's a little chat icon that you can click, and just enter your name and where you're joining from. And this will give us a moment to, give us a moment to sort of behold the community that's gathered here around these practices and ideas. Oh, someone else from Seattle in the house. All right. Whole lot of East Coast. Nicole, you've been in Bali for like a year. What's going on there? And Trish and Brooks, y'all are back. I'm so curious if you know my friend Bonnie. So curious. Mount Shasta, awesome. And Maine in the house. So we have basically the whole country gathered. Many of these places are old stomping grounds to me. Bay Area, certainly. Oregon, certainly. So, New York, certainly. Great. So I'll tell you something. Several years ago, I was working with a coach who introduced me to the notion that what freedom is, right? This is my favorite definition of freedom, is the willingness for your fears to come to pass. That's what freedom is. right? The willingness, personal freedom, societal, cultural freedom, different story, but personal freedom is the willingness for your fears to pass and to trust that you have done the work, you have cultivated the resourcefulness, you've cultivated the skillfulness, you've cultivated the emotional intelligence, you've cultivated the community, you've cultivated all the things that would lead a person to be able to meet calamity and to thrive in the face of calamity, to not just overcome, but to use it as a spring for growth. And I thought, well, that sounds fucking great. And that really tracks in my experience, right? And now I'm in a situation, like I think it's universal on this call, where my fears are coming to pass, like the big ones, right? Like a racist demagogue coming in for a second term with no checks and balances potentially, and a plan to eliminate those checks and balances, right? And I'm now questioning, you know, there's personal freedom, and that's great, but like, wow, the societal, cultural, political freedom piece is really at the fore, and it's challenging, you know, my very privileged outlook of being able to prioritize that personal freedom and treat it like it's the only freedom that really matters, or the only freedom that I really need to work hard on. And so I think, you know, I think the rest of that definition, though, really applies in terms of, because it's not just the willingness for bad things to happen and to meet it without, you know, with a trust and a confidence in life. It's you've done the work, right? And that's kind of what I want to talk about tonight is, you know, if we're going to meet this moment and not fall apart, if we're going to meet this moment and not downward spiral, if we're going to meet this moment and not give into reactivity, hatred, callousness, apathy, doom scrolling, God forbid what I did in 2020, which was a lot of yelling on Twitter, which led me to cancel that Twitter account because I was like, yo, I am kind of a public figure and I can't be doing this. If we're going to have the space inside to be clear on what our values are and how to put them into action, and that's the point, right, is how do we put things into action, then we're going to have to cultivate the exact same things that would lead us down a path of resilience: emotional intelligence, emotional literacy, clarity on what our values are, on who we are, what our identity is in the world, sense of supportive community, right? Things that we know from psychological research robustly predict a person's ability to turn a dumpster fire into a cause for personal growth, right? Which, by the way, all of these factors that I'm talking about are also factors that we might call post-traumatic growth. If you can reach out to community, if you can develop, you know, your spiritual life, for example, in the face of calamity, we might, in the psychological world, also call that post-traumatic growth. I think these things are going to be incredibly important in terms of having the sort of clarity that we all want to have. We are going to need to stay connected to wise people. So if you are not on gallery view, you might want to go to gallery view. I keep my screen on gallery view on Zoom because it ain't about just my big dumb face saying things. It's about everybody who's gathered here. Staying connected to wise people, wise ideas, and wise practices that help us clarify, help us to clarify. I have one more item that I want to introduce. And I'm going to put that after the meditation. We're mostly here because the call was put out, hey, if you feel stressed, if you want to soothe and get into some emotional regulation in the face of everything that we're taking in right now. Right? That's the main thing that I think we're probably here for. But there's more to the story as well. So I'm going to just put a pin in everything that I'm saying, that kind of tirade that I'm on. And let's get into some practice. And after that, I'll say a couple more things will open up to community discussion as well. But first things first, let's find our way to the present moment. Let's find our way to a regulated nervous system together. So I'll invite you to find any posture that works for your body right now, that helps you to feel stable. Tonight I'm not going to offer too many postural instructions. Other than that, just make sure your body feels organized relatively from top to bottom, left to right, front to back. And the first thing I want you to know as you begin to maybe close your eyes, you're welcome to leave them open as well. And you're welcome to switch. If at any point you need a break, you might want to open your eyes to take that break. You don't have to do anything other than that. Just open your eyes, take a mental break. We'll be here for about 20 minutes. It's going to go faster than you think, though. And as you drop into the aliveness of your body, as you drop down to the space beneath the shoulders, hopefully, and as you begin to feel the precious breath moving through you, I want you to know you're safe in this space. Emotionally safe, at least, to be you. The only rule here is no one's allowed to be perfect. That's it. Fuck that. And that you're welcome here, that you belong here with these folks in this practice, in this precious human body. You belong. And so breathe with that. Take that in, those very basic things. I'm safe here and I belong. And you may even want to deepen the breath a little bit. So as you breathe, I'll ask you to notice the sound of my voice and the fact that it doesn't have to take you away from the breath so much as you can just breathe. And it's more of an allowing the instructions in. The instructions, which by the way are more of a suggestion than anything else. And so breathe. But I invite you to join me in imagining you've walked out to a big open field. Big, beautiful, expansive space where you can see the horizon in all directions. You can feel the grass between your toes. And you're looking up at the sky, taking in the big, beautiful sun that's shining right on your face. This isn't the ordinary sun where you have to worry about, skin stuff and UV rays and all that. No. In this field, you can just take in the sun and enjoy the life-giving properties, the nourishment, as you breathe, feeling it on your brow, the good sunlight on the bridge of your nose, and on your eyelids, and on your cheeks, and on your lips, and on your jawline from ear to ear. As you breathe, you might feel the face melting a little bit, losing its shape. And then that good sunlight that you feel on your face begins to sink in, absorbing into the head, absorbing into the brain, absorbing down the back of the head, and beginning to make its way into the neck and the throat. You feel the light of the sun pouring into your shoulder tops, down the arms, into the palms and fingers. You feel that good sunlight streaming into the chest, the heart space, the shoulder blades and the upper spine. And there's just such a goodness to this that you can really feel as it flows into the solar plexus and mid-back. And the abdomen, the lower back, all the organs touched by the sunlight. Breathing as it lands in the hips and the pelvis and the glutes. You might even find that your body relaxes and sinks into the earth just a little more deeply here. And then down into the legs. All around the knees. And all the way down to the feet and toes. And even back down into the earth. So that you can breathe as a whole body now. And feeling this connection from above to below. Connected to the earth, connected to the sky. And I'll invite you to breathe as if you could breathe right into the heart space. As if the breath could come right into the center of the chest, as if the nose is in the spine, behind the heart, and you're breathing into this place and out from this place. And what I want you to know is that the place where you're breathing it's not unlike the sun. It's not unlike the moon. breathing into the heart space in hopes of sort of uncovering, wiping away the dust and the layers so that the heart can glow as it's meant to. It can radiate and shine, outshine the troubles we're met with. Okay. So we'll be here just a little bit longer. But if you're getting anxious or activated, one trick is to breathe yourself a little bit bigger. Right? Or if working with the breath doesn't work for your body for any reason, imagine yourself expanding, your body growing to take up all the space in the room, actually. The space to your left, your right, in front, behind, above, below. So that you can hold and contain whatever it is that needs your care. That's what disruptive emotions are. It's a call to care, to offer caring in some needed way. And so you can really let your breaths kind of take on the quality of a yawn. And I don't mean that literally, I mean that metaphorically. Like, don't actually yawn, but you can let it have that feeling, especially as you exhale. Like that big release of a yawning exhale. The way that feels in the body somatically. And if you need to take that literally, please be my guest. Let every breath be like a yawn, that kind of letting go. Very last thing. What are the most important things you could possibly remember right now? We forget so much. But what do you need to remember, open to, hold on to, be clear on right now? For me, it's love. Every time. Love in its 1,000 manifestations, both the fierce kind of love and the soft kind of love. May we embody those 1,000 expressions. And if you so wish, you can bring your left heart up to your heart space, or your left hand up to your heart space, your right hand in protection of the left, and offer a gentle bow, an expression of, yeah, that love. So, thank you, each of you. So when affliction arises, it's a call to caring, right? It's definitely an emotional truth, a psychological truth, right? It's how trauma is healed, for example, one of many examples, right? You allow the wound to be known, be seen, be witnessed, and you bring in expressions of caring, which again, there's so many, right? I really think it's a societal truth. I really think it's a political truth. In, some of us might be familiar with terms like systemic oppression, right? Structural bigotry, right? Terms like that. What if we had systemic compassion, structural caring in our world, right? That's the world I want, and I think that's the world we're meant to have, and I think that's the world that we all want to see. I think even in our most enraged moments, that's what's actually at the core of the thing, isn't it? Like, we get upset, we get freaked out, we're really worried because we care. And it's real easy to lose sight of that basis of caring as we get lost in the fray. And so I'm convinced more and more with every passing year, and there's 18 of them now in teaching and 20 years of practice now, that we need spaces like this where we can tune back into and kind of go underneath, go find the substratum of everything else, which is that basic caring, right? It's hard though. It's hard. I became a therapist the year before. I became a therapist in 2016, and we all know what that year means, right? And I've seen, I actually entered my private practice rather in that year, and I've seen that there's people who I've been a therapist to this whole time. They've been with me from the beginning, strangely enough. I'm amazed at it all the time, and I've seen the whole trajectory, and I've seen and gotten to know very intimately the psychological correlations and ramifications of everything that's gone on sociopolitically for people. And I work mostly with cis women, I will say as well. That just tends to be, it's my family, it's my friends, it's my bandmates, it's my whole world, really. It's mostly cis women. And as I wrote in Don't Tell Me to Relax, my second book, the the trauma reminders are really out, and we need to be aware of that, right? Because the first government we ever experienced was our family system. The first leaders we ever related to were caregivers in our lives. And if I had $1 for every time somebody said, but he just reminds me of my dad, right? It'd be ridiculous. Then I could be a bartender, maybe, right? And that is so much of our care and concern for the world, and our care and concern for what's going on meets with our trauma histories and what it is that we need to work out in our nervous systems and our bodies, to feel our intrinsic wholeness. And that complicates the situation. So again, coming to spaces like this to clarify. And I really, I'm harping on this. Like, we gotta gather right now. We gotta, connection is the word. Connection is the word. But the second thing I want to talk about is, one thing that's been impressed on me as an activist and all of these years, and I've gotten away from, I think Occupy Wall Street was like the last time I really fucking screamed my head off in the streets, which is actually truly my form of activism. That's what I like the most, is that direct, making the voice heard, making the collective voice heard. So I've gotten away from it. But one thing that years of activism has shown me is, show of hands really quick, those of you who have your cameras on, if you've been in a worry spiral lately. Yeah, it's for fucking all of us, right? Keep your hand up. If you've been taking in headlines, but you're yet to do any sort of concrete action, I'm keeping my hand up, right? Yeah, that's a lot of us. That's a lot of us. I get lazy and I'm like, well, I help people heal from trauma at like a pretty decent level, so I'm doing my part. And right now that's not enough. Right? I want to say this. The worry that we feel, the anger that we feel as we take in the headlines, as we watch very surreal fucking things unfold in front of our eyes, is not meant to just sit in our bodies. It's not meant to sit in our bodies. It must be turned into action. Otherwise, no good. We literally, for the coming months, I want you to know this as a wellness tip, as a life hack. There is not going to be any sort of feeling good unless you're taking action. There's no way you can consume the information that we are consuming without channeling that into something and be okay inside. The only way that that's going to actually happen is if you're actually closing off from your own heart, if you're actually figuring out, and many of us have that capacity, right? Figure out how to be very, very callous. And so that's kind of what I want to talk about tonight, is I want to share ideas, and I have my own, and I'm really curious about y'all's. Especially those of you who did put your hand down and said, no, I've been doing shit. What have you been doing? I want to hear about it, so that we can feed off of each other's ideas. What I want to do is I want to turn this Wednesday night thing right now into a weekly thing called Resilience Club. Come together and have a stable base that you can drop in, you can drop out of. There's not going to be any sort of sign up or anything. It'll be just like tonight. But it's here if you need it. To regulate yourself, and then, so we'll meditate, talk, and then if you want to, we'll tag on an optional half an hour at the end where we engage in online activism and letter writing campaigns. And whether that looks like getting people to register to vote. There's a lot of evidence, and some dear friends and teachers of mine, Ethan Nichtern in particular, are really getting behind writing letters to potential voters. There's a great research that shows that when potential voters receive letters out of the blue from total strangers saying, hey, I really think you should turn up and do this thing with us, those people become more likely to vote. They get off the fence. Because that sense of connection, right? That sense of belonging that contact creates, right? I think I want to really take this Wednesday night thing and use it for emotional regulation, and then focus on how do we get people to turn out to vote, and whatever, we don't even have to go around preaching a message except turn out to vote. You know why? Because the research also shows that the more people who turn out to vote, the more progressive the outcome. Every time, historically, very, very consistent. Very, very consistent. The more people who turn out to vote, the more progressive the outcome. We don't actually have to go and scream our heads off at every Trump supporter that we know. We don't have to go and scream our heads off about all the issues that we are very, very passionate about and that we care about. If we can get people to turn out to vote, we win. You know why? Because Project 25, MAGA, they are the minority and they know it. And they know it. If you want some real research on that, you can watch the documentary Bad Faith for free on YouTube. I think it's on Prime, I think it's on Tubi. And they get into exactly this. They're the minority, they know they're the minority. We are actually the majority, but less than 50% of Americans vote. And I think what is actually happening right now is the discourse is so discouraging out there that people are just feeling more and more disenfranchised, and it's the people who are not really consuming news, it's the people who wouldn't show up to an evening like this that are starting to say, yeah, I think I'm going to sit this one out, y'all. And those are the people who most likely, statistically speaking, would vote in the direction of human rights and what I would define as basic sanity. Right? So we've got to find a way to reach them. And I think it's that one-to-one contact that can really matter. And if 20, 30 of us gather every Wednesday, and that's 30 letters a week. That's 120 letters a month between now and the election, and that starts to be something. If you feel so inspired and you start up a group that gets together one more time a week with 20 of your friends like that, then what we start having is, an exponential effect. I think that there's some hope in that, and it's a good, concrete, accessible, easy way to channel that energy that each of us can fit into our lives. The problem is accountability, right? Because we all have too much going on. We're all exhausted already. And so if we make it part of a gathering where we're also taking good care of ourselves and seeing these beautiful people, connected to wise people, things start to look a little more accessible. Yeah, so that's my piece. I'm going to open this up to everybody else. I've been running my mouth for nearly an hour now. I think it's time to create some space. But I'm just so curious, and if you are new to hanging out with me in a Zoom space, then welcome. If you're not new, then you know how this goes. It's just open forum. I don't really bring in discussion questions, just any reactions, any questions, any comments. But let's start here with, what are your ideas for taking action right now? What has been percolating in your life? What have you been doing? What are your thoughts here? And no need to raise your hand or anything. You can just unmute and hop in at any time.
So, hi.
Hi, Melissa.
I'm Melissa, and something that I've been doing, honestly, probably since 2017 or 2018. There's a couple of people that I signed up with. One is Jess Craven from Chopwood Carry Water. She has a Substack, she has a TikTok, she has an Instagram. And the other one is called the Americans for Conscience Checklist, and I just lost that woman's name. And Jess sends out daily suggestions of issues that you can contact your representative and say things to, groups you can join to write letters or postcards, educational Zoom calls you can get onto. There's lots and lots. ResistBot, if you're familiar with ResistBot, that you can sign up for. So that's a daily. Americans of Conscience Checklist is weekly. And, I'll be honest, I don't do something every day, but I do a lot more than I did before 2016, and I considered myself fairly politically engaged.
Yeah.
My representatives recognize my name because I'm emailing them or I'm calling them or I don't have a fax machine
Right.
on the regular. And I've written a lot of postcards to get people signed up or for special elections. So it kind of depends on the group. It makes me feel like I'm doing something. I'm just one person. It's a drop in the bucket, but it makes me feel better than doing nothing and just kind of stewing. And the other thing I like about these people is that they are really doing a deep dive into the news for me. So I can stay top level. I can read the headlines. I can know what's going on without really perseverating on the horrible, horrible details. But I have other people kind of doing it and digesting it and telling me what they think is important. And I've really come to trust some of these resources.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. I mean, we also know, I've heard podcast interviews with folks who work in the offices of these elected representatives who say, no, this actually works. When we get an avalanche of postcards from constituents saying something, yeah, maybe the individual postcard doesn't matter that much, but when we get an avalanche of them, we start listening. Right. We know which way the wind is blowing. So, Americans of conscience, what I'm going to do is every idea that gets put out here, I'm going to take it down and I'll create a resource list that I'll post online as well. So, that's wonderful, Melissa. Thank you for sharing that. And anybody else?
Said this in the chat,
Yeah.
but I don't know. I kind of feel like if there was ever a year for a third party candidate to go for it, it would be now. So I've just been very active about Jill Stein.
Mm-hmm.
You can easily join like a call group for her.
Mm-hmm.
I think that maybe anyone like hearing that there is an alternative might be interested. I think that there's like a saturation of this idea of just a two-party system that if maybe enough people knew that there was another option and that the other option has the like mindset of people planet peace, that would be something a lot of people could get behind as far as the Green Party goes. And I know she's run, this would be her third time running for president, and I don't know if it's a matter of like people seeing a name and not really knowing or what, but it seems like the kind of thing that the majority of people would get behind if they just knew that it was available.
Yeah.
So I've been putting a lot of my energy towards, well, I'm in California, so I don't know. It doesn't really, I feel like it doesn't really matter. But across America, if more people knew that was an option, that makes me feel, I don't know, like there would be a possibility. I don't know. It makes me feel a little bit less anxious knowing that, you know, the Electoral College has wronged Americans a lot in the past, but the fact that she is on enough ballots in enough states that it could potentially win the Electoral College, that does make me feel better. I don't know, just thrown out there because I was feeling very like hopeless as far as like there's nothing I can do. And I still kind of feel like there's nothing I can do. But this is like one thing where I'm like, maybe if more people knew, that gives us a chance.
Yeah. 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 So spreading awareness, expanding awareness. Yeah. Thank you for that. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Options exist. I felt similarly about Marianne Williamson, and I was praying we would actually have a real primary, but she just gets written off as a kook when her ideas are. I mean, she's Bernie 2.0. She's fucking profound, but here we are. Here we are. Yeah.
May I speak?
I wish you would.
Hey, it's Beth, everybody.
Mm.
So, because of my own personal situation, what I'm doing is very small.
Mm-hmm.
First, I'm just trying to stay grounded in my body. When you asked what word, I immediately thought earth, ground. Don't try to stay grounded in traffic,
Yeah.
things like that. Stay with my breath as I navigate. And then I have two friends, both of whom are from very opposite uh, backgrounds and attitudes and philosophies, both of whom have gone through absolute hell, and are brilliant people. And they have contacted me,
Mm-hmm.
and reached out to me because they have been through hospitalizations, and so they are very different people. And so I'm going to listen to them, and let them know about resources that I have found helpful, such as this space, Big Heart City, and that kind of. I'm going to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Also, I'm volunteering at food pantry because I use that. And so now I am volunteering there, and I really like it. I'm making great contact with people in that community. Lots of people from all over the place are there, and I can give back and at the same time learn things, so I can find employment that I feel is really contributing on the ground.
Mm-hmm.
And then I know a couple, I will simply say, who are very young, newly arrived. She's going to have a baby, and they're out in the country helping take care of my personal, familiar creature who's kept me going all these years. And so I am trying to help them and give them support all I can. And they don't speak my language, so they have taught me how to use Google Translate. So that's fun. And then I was thinking of things like election day. I can do a lot. I can even work or ask about working, counting votes and things like that. So it's all stuff like that. And then also just trying to remember to take care of myself so I don't take on too much and get too activated. But I'm so happy about the fierce compassion, that, and to integrate this anger and feeling that I've had for so long, but to feel I'm in a good place to channel it, if that's the word, in a good way. And then I have a dad who's 101 years old, and so he's still alive, and he's just, you can just see him kind of almost unable to orient himself to this reality. And so that's kind of a thing too, because he certainly was there for me, and my parents went through a heck of trauma. So now I get to be with them, and so it's a lot, but that's what I'm doing for now.
So
Thanks for listening, and I'm with everybody so much in my spirit. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, so putting your love into action in that good one-to-one kind of way, right? And maintaining community connections in that kind of way as well. I mean, this is no time to lose our heads, right? This is no time to lose our sense of well-being. So thank you for highlighting, mutual aid community support in this space as well. Any final thoughts? Yeah. So, this is great. I think continuing to educate ourselves, I will certainly put some links up on Instagram from tonight's discussion. If anybody wants to hop in, please just come in and talk right over me. But I remain convinced driving voter turnout might be one of the wisest, most efficacious things we could do. And Krista, I see you're unmuting here. Were you hoping to hop in?
Yeah, I mean, can you hear me? Hold on,
Sure can.
I just feel, and this is just a thought, and it's not. I don't know what kind of action item it is. I personally believe if the status quo stays, if there is not a different uh, outcome in the convention. I mean, I was so hopeful when Marianne Williamson, I supported her campaign so much, and I cannot believe that she was basically canceled. I mean, there was no way that she could show anything, and I find it's so hard that we have to choose now between the lesser of two evils, and because in a way a vote is a vote for something, and I mean I cannot even vote yet. I'm about to get my citizenship, but I just hope that there will be. I think there is still hope if there is an open convention, if Democrats experience
Oh yeah.
that there is democracy.
Yeah.
Because how it's done right now, I mean, it's just the same. So that's my person. So I think I wonder what can we do in that direction, that because if we experience that it is allowed, that we question the status quo, that there is something else possible, then I think there would be a huge voter turnout, because then it is lived democracy, and not right now it's just fear over fear over fear, by saying. So that's my frustration with this whole thing, and that's the thing I don't know what to do about.
What I wanna, yeah, I'm with you. I'm with you in like in the thought on it's deeply unfortunate. I mean, I just hate the Democratic National Convention at this point, especially, beginning with what happened to Bernie, right? But unfortunately, there is a logistical issue. If a new candidate is selected, they would have to register in many states. I think like while the convention is still happening, in order to be on the ballot. I know in Washington State, if a new candidate were to be the nominee and were to register after the Democratic National Convention, they would not be on the ballot in Washington State. And the Heritage Foundation is actually poised and ready to sue to keep any new candidate off the ballot in many battleground states. And so there's, as much as I get the logic of wanting to see somebody other than Biden, there's some real logistical issues with that where it's a gamble. It is a gamble, unfortunately.
Wow.
And
Okay.
so, yeah, but I'm with you. I certainly do not disagree. And I think it's part of what's really disenfranchising people. But yeah, let's just take a moment here at the end, because yeah, let's just take a moment here. I will just say, I'm yeah, I think there is hope. I think now is not the time for despair. I really like how Michelle Obama actually says, make all of your decisions based on hope and not on fear. Because you just don't know. You just don't know. And if you're making your decisions based on fear, you're very likely to regret it down the line, So go with hope. And I think that hope really lies in driving turnout. If we can just do that much, I want to see the system change I want to not live under a Trump theocracy much more than that, right? And that's the pressing concern. That's the pressing concern. So if you found this soothing, if you found this relevant, if you like the idea of gathering, meditating, connecting with good folks, and then doing something to put your heart into basically materialization, right? A materialization of your heart, of your values. Come back. You're going to see it posted everywhere. I'll get it up in the next couple of days, but this is what I feel called to do. So let's just drop in, back to the body, back to the heart space, back to the breath. And here at the end of these classes, it's our little tradition to take a moment to really feel good about ourselves, actually. Meditation, spiritual practice, conversations like this, looking the dangers we face directly in the eye. It's not easy. None of this is easy. We could be at happy hour, but we're here. And you get to feel good about that. And then definitely shining from the heart, like the sun, like the moon, glowing, radiating. Together we wish that may the merits of our spiritual practice, may the merits of all of our good deeds be multiplied to infinity and shared with every sentient life form there is. We send out our deepest wishes for all beings to be free, for all hearts to heal, and for everyone to be happy, to have the causes and conditions of happiness. Om Namo. Thank you all so much. I appreciate each of you. And we have one last little tradition as we wrap up Zoom calls like this. You can unmute and say good night, and it's really fun when everybody does it at the exact same time. So good night, my friends. See you all soon.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Everybody.
Good night.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ralph. I'm really grateful to you.
Ralph.
Thank you, Ralph.
Good night. Sleep tight.
Mañana. Mañana. Good night.